The year was 1934, a Saturday night in late autumn when the air in Harlem was crisp enough to snap a twig. The Alhambra ballroom and grill was vibrating with the heat of bodies and the brassy punch of a swing band, but at the corner table near the kitchen, the temperature was absolute zero. Ellsworth, Bumpy Johnson sat there, a portrait of sartorial perfection in a custom-tailored cream-colored wool suit. It was a suit that dared the world to touch it, a suit so pristine that it seemed to repel the grime of the city by sheer force of will. Ironically, the fabric was Italian, imported from the very land of the men who were currently trying to put him in a pine box. Across from him sat Vinny, the dove, a sweating, nervous consigliere sent by Dutch Schultz. Vinny was trying to look dangerous, but under Bumpy's heavy-lidded gaze, he looked more like a man trying to hold back a sneeze in church. Vinny had just delivered the ultimatum: surrender the policy banks to the Dutchman or be erased. He leaned back, thinking his job was done, thinking the muscle waiting by the back door was his insurance policy. "You have a nice suit, Bumpy," Vinny sneered, his eyes darting around the room. "Shame to bury a man in something that expensive. Dutch is generous. He'll let you be buried in it if you walk away tonight." Bumpy didn't blink. He reached for his wine glass, his movements languid. "It is a nice suit, Vinny. Your cousins in Naples stitched it. It takes a steady hand to create something this beautiful. It's a pity your boss has such clumsy hands." At that exact moment, the kitchen doors burst open. The music didn't stop, but the conversation at the nearby tables died instantly. Ulysses Rollins, a freelance killer known on the streets as the Switchblade Beast, stormed into the dining room. Rollins was a nightmare made of muscle and scars, holding a 10-inch stiletto that gleamed under the chandeliers. He had been paid to make it messy, to make an example of Bumpy in front of his own people. Vinny smiled. The trap sprung. "Goodbye, Bumpy." Bumpy didn't stand up. Not yet. With a calm that bordered on the supernatural, he picked up the starched white linen napkin from the table. He shook it out with a snap that sounded like a pistol shot, and then, with deliberate, aristocratic grace, he tucked it into his collar, fashioning a makeshift bib over his cream lapels. "Vinny," Bumpy said, his voice level, ignoring the charging assassin, "I have a gambling problem, as you know. So, here is a wager. $100 says that when I am finished teaching this lesson, not a single drop of his dirty blood will touch my suit. The napkin? Maybe. But the suit stays cream." Rollins was 3 feet away, the knife lunging for Bumpy's throat. Bumpy moved. It wasn't a brawl, it was a magic trick. Bumpy pivoted in his chair, the cream suit becoming a blur of ivory motion. The straight razor, the cheetah, appeared in his right hand as if materialized from the ether. He didn't block the knife, he flowed around it. As Rollins' arm extended, Bumpy stepped inside the guard, his body contorting with the grace of a matador dodging a bull. Zip. The first cut was invisible to the naked eye, but the result was immediate. Rollins' wrist went limp, the stiletto clattering to the parquet floor. Bumpy had severed the tendon with the precision of a neurosurgeon. But he didn't stop. This was the Red Symphony, and the first movement had just begun. For the next 60 seconds, the Alhambra witnessed a horrifying ballet. Bumpy didn't strike to kill. He struck to dismantle. He spun Rollins around, using the assassin's own momentum against him. The razor flashed, silver lightning in a room of smoke. Cuts 1 through 10 were purely functional. Hamstrings, biceps, forearms. Rollins tried to swing, but his limbs refused to obey. He was a puppet whose strings were being cut one by one. He fell to his knees, roaring in confusion and pain, blood beginning to pool on the polished wood. Bumpy danced around him, his shoes tapping lightly on the floor, the cream pants legs inches from the spraying arterial red, yet never touching it. He was a ghost in the machine of violence. Cuts 11 through 30 were the message. Shallow, stinging slices across the chest, the back, the cheeks. They were designed to terrify, to write a letter in scarlet script that said, "I own your pain." Bumpy moved with a rhythm that seemed to sync with the jazz band, which was now playing a frantic, disjointed tune as the musicians watched in horror. Rollins was on the ground now, a weeping, broken heap. He tried to crawl away, his blood smearing the floor. Bumpy stepped over him, his movements light, almost floating. He delivered the final flurry. Cuts 31 through 36, etching a map of Harlem's rage onto the man's skin. Then silence. Rollins lay groaning at Vinnie the Dove's feet. The floor was a slaughterhouse. Bumpy Johnson stood in the center of the carnage. He took a deep breath and looked down at himself. He extended his arms. The cream suit was immaculate. Not a speck, not a smudge. It shone under the lights, defiantly pure. He reached up and untucked the white napkin from his collar. There was a single tiny droplet of red on the very hem of the linen. "Close," Bumpy murmured, "but the suit is safe." He walked back to the table, stepping carefully over the ruined body of the assassin. He wiped the blade of his razor on the white napkin, leaving a long crimson streak across the fabric, and then tossed the stained cloth onto the table, right next to Vinnie's plate. Vinnie was trembling so hard, his fork was rattling against the china. He looked at the blood-soaked assassin, then at the pristine Bumpy Johnson, and his mind couldn't reconcile the two images. Bumpy sat down and picked up his fork. A waiter, terrified but loyal, had just placed a steaming plate of spaghetti bolognese in front of him. The rich red meat sauce looked disturbingly like the scene on the floor. Bumpy swirled a nest of pasta onto his fork, steam rising. "Eat, Vinnie," Bumpy commanded softly, pointing his fork at Vinnie's own untouched pasta. "The bolognese is excellent here. It has a depth of flavor." Vinnie stared at the red sauce. He looked at the red floor. He looked at Bumpy's cold, dead eyes. I'm not hungry, Bumpy." "I didn't ask if you were hungry," Bumpy said, his voice dropping to that subterranean rumble that signaled the end of negotiations. "I said, eat. It's bad luck to waste food. And tell Dutch Schultz something for me when you go back downtown." Bumpy took a bite of the pasta, chewed slowly, and swallowed. "Tell him that the blood of Harlem runs hot," Bumpy said, gesturing to the floor with his wine glass. "Don't make me use it to make sauce for my next meal. Now eat." Vinnie picked up his fork. With shaking hands, he forced a mouthful of the red pasta into his mouth, gagging as he swallowed, the metallic smell of fresh blood mixing with the aroma of tomatoes and garlic. He ate because he knew that if he stopped, the razor would come out again. Bumpy watched him for a moment, satisfied. He pulled a crisp $100 bill from his pocket, the wager he had won against himself, and signaled the waiter. "Jerry," Bumpy said as the trembling young man approached, "I apologize for the mess. Please see that the staff gets this for the extra mopping up." He stood up, buttoning the jacket of his cream suit. He looked at the band leader, who was holding his trumpet like a shield. "What are you waiting for?" Bumpy asked, flashing a charming, terrifying smile. "The show isn't over. Play something upbeat, stompin' at the Savoy, and make it loud." As the band kicked into a frantic, brassy rhythm, trying to drown out the groans of the man on the floor, Bumpy Johnson walked out of the Alhambra. He moved through the parting crowd like a king, his cream suit glowing in the dim light. A symbol of a man who could walk through a hurricane of blood and come out the other side without a single stain.